With the Bruin being nerfed last month, I'm over here hoping to God IW doesn't see this weapon right here, the CR56 AMAX. Now the AMAX is my favorite AR in the game, by far. And as an AR, it's got a lot of stiff competition with the likes of the Grau, M4 and Kilo. But today I'm going to show you two loadouts that's going to convince you that it is the best AR in Warzone. Here's some stats from TrueGunData.com, comparing the base stats of the AMAX to the M4A1. As you can see, the AMAX keeps up with the M4, but has a weaker bullet velocity and movement speed that it more than makes up for, with an insane damage profile of 42 to the chest and a whopping 56 to the head. This graph compares the stock AMAX to the ever popular Kilo MP5 loadout and shows their time to kill, or TTK. And as you can see, it beats out a fully kitted MP5, while somewhat keeping up at the Kilo at long range, which goes to show how hard the AMAX actually hits. Now, one thing these stats don't show us is the recoil pattern. And as you can see, it's mainly vertical with some horizontal movement. Now, this can be relatively easy to compensate for by just simply pulling down while you're shooting to achieve something not bad with no attachments. And by using the right attachments, we can fix the recoil and the bullet velocity, turning this weapon into an absolute beast. Now, first off, we're gonna kit this AMAX out as our primary weapon, expecting to use it in most gunfights, with something like a subby or a shotgun as a close range backup. So we're going to start off with the monolithic suppressor. We're taking this for the extra damage range and the hidden 15% bullet velocity. We're also going to take the Zodiac barrel. That helps us with recoil control, bullet velocity and damage range. And since we're going for a longer range AR, we're going to take the VLK 3x optic. Now, this optic actually has a hidden 10% reduction in vertical recoil and horizontal bounce, plus it is one of the cleanest sights in the game. And we're going to head over to the mags and take 45 round mags. The extra magazine capacity comes in really big, especially in trios and quads. But if you're playing solos and duos, you could take sleight of hand instead. Although it's a safer option just to go with the 45 round mags. That being said, we have the underbarrel now. We're going to go with the Ranger foregrip, although you could go with the Merc or Operator foregrip. And unlike most guns, I actually don't recommend taking the Commander foregrip on this, just because it doesn't really do anything for this gun in particular. Some people may disagree, but I recommend just taking the Ranger foregrip. Now, if you want to be really frisky, you could forego a foregrip and maybe even run a tack laser, which I've done before, or a stippled wrap, just to increase your ADS speed. But you're gonna find it a little bit rough at those longer ranges where you need to hit people behind half walls that are only showing their head. That's why I recommend sticking to the Ranger foregrip, as the recoil control and aiming stability will really help those longer range gunfights, where this build of the AMAX was really meant to shine. Now, when you put all these attachments together, what you get is a very deadly rifle that specializes in ego challenging, which is something like this. As you can see, that guy, he had the first shot on me and I still wrecked him. Now for a secondary weapon, this MP5 is what I use. Monolithic integral suppressor, 5mm laser, Merc foregrip, 45 round mags, and sleight of hand. I know some people like to use collapsible stock, but I found that the extra move speed was good, but at anything greater than about 15 meters, it started to struggle. So I opted for sleight of hand, and because I usually play with a bunch of mates, we end up in quads where sleight of hand comes in pretty good when you're getting squished by two teams. Now for the perks, for our first slot I use EOD for the reduction to explosives. Double C4s, very popular to flush people out of buildings, and it helps when you accidentally C4 yourself, you don't kill yourself. Overkill, obviously, because we're running 2 primary weapons, we need overkill. And amped as well, because not so much the rocket launcher reload speed, but the faster weapon swap speed, as swapping between your guns and making sure you're versatile is the key to winning a Warzone game. So for our equipment, we've got C4 for lethals to get rid of campers or any sort of vehicle that's trying to run us over. We've got, for tactical, we've got flash grenades, stun grenades, smoke grenades, or heartbeats. It's totally up to you, personal preference. And there you have it. A mid to long range AMAX with a perfect subby companion to make sure you're effective at all ranges. Now before we go into the close quarter setup, I just want to say that the effective range of this AMAX is around about 50 meters. Anything further than that and you're going to start to notice the recoil and the bullet velocity affecting. Well, what does 50 meters look like? Well, here we're in a custom game, and as you can see, the A flag is showing us how far we are from it. And if we go a little bit further back, we'll be hitting 50 meters almost. Oh, a little bit too much. There we go, 50 meters. And I'll show you 60, and that's probably the most you should go. Anything more, swap to the sniper. Now with this second loadout, we're going to be focusing on maximizing the handling and snappiness of the AMAX whilst not sacrificing too much in terms of range. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with a monolithic suppressor for the same reasons as before. We're actually skipping the barrel on this one, opting for a Merc foregrip. You could use the operator foregrip if you want a lighter gun, just because there's no movement speed penalty, but that's totally a personal preference. And for ammunition, we're going to go with the 45 round mag. I don't actually recommend using sleight of hand with this, just because you're going to be in the thick of things and you'll need to fall back on this extra 15 bullets. Next, we're going to put on stippled wrap. The reason we're taking this is because we're going to be using this weapon to rush buildings or other opponents, and you're going to need the sprint to fire speed to make sure that you get the first shot on. Now that we've done all the major attachments, the last one is a bit more personal preference. If you don't like the iron sights like me, then you could opt for a red dot sight or hollow sight. Either one works for you. Or if you don't mind the iron sights, you could go with a laser for, again, more ADS speed. You could go for sleight of hand, or you could take the exo stock, making the gun much more maneuverable and really increasing those strafe speeds, giving it almost like subby movement. But for now, we will play safe and take the GI Mini. It's my personal preference. And as a secondary weapon, we'll be taking the Kar98K. And the setup I have on the Kar98K is monolithic suppressor, the 27.6 inch Singard Arms custom barrel, tac laser, sniper scope, although you can use variable zoom, it's totally up to you, and the focus perk. You could opt for sleight of hand, but I feel when contesting ARs, focus is amazing. It essentially cuts out any bullet punch and makes it an absolute rock. But if you're not a fan of the Kar98K, you could use the AX50 HDR. I personally prefer the HDR over the AX50, and this is what I use on it. I have the monolithic suppressor, 26.9 HDR Pro barrel, tac laser, F-tac Stalker Scout stock, and sleight of hand. You could run extra mags, but I feel like it really guts the ADS speed on this rifle compared to sleight of hand. For perks, exact same as before. Lethals, we're running C4s again, and tactical you can run again. Heartbeat, stun, smoke, flash, I'd probably stick to either stuns or heartbeat, as smokes are good to get you out of a situation, but a stun can really turn an unfavorable fight your way, and a heartbeat sensor can give you some really clutch information to stop you from just turning a corner and getting sprayed by a whole squad. One thing you should know is that even though you have a sniper, you don't need to hit that one-shot kill. Just simply shooting them in the upper chest and swapping to the AMAX to finish them off works pretty well too. It can get you through some really tough situations. What you get in the end is a weapon that requires a little bit more skill to use, as it's not quite as plug and play as other guns, but it's super rewarding when you're using it correctly. I mean, honestly guys, there's nothing quite like it. The closest thing would probably be the AK, and we all know the AK is pretty meh. And guys, that wraps it up. If you learned something helpful, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, hit that thumbs down and let me know in the comments what you didn't like. If you want to check out more of my content, my Twitch is linked below in the description. I've been Composure. Remember to breathe.